I want to start with a sound. It's arguably the most universally hated sound in the modern world.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
Right. It's 6 a.m., or maybe 6:30 if you're lucky. You're deep in a dream. Your body is warm, heavy, completely relaxed, and then
Beep, beep, beep.
exactly the sound of the morning battle. You're jolted awake, heart racing, and you just feel, not ready.
And we just brush it off. I'm not a morning person.
Right. Or I need coffee.
Okay.
But I read something this week that suggests this feeling isn't just an annoyance. It's a conflict.
A conflict.
A legitimate battle. And if you've ever felt like your schedule is actually hurting you, not just stressing you out, but causing an injury, well, this deep dive is going to validate a lot of those feelings.
It is. We are unpacking an article by Jaime Hoerricks, Ph.D. It's titled Executive Functioning, The Violence of the Timer.
And see, that's where I got stuck, right away. The violence of the timer.
It's a heavy title.
It's a really heavy phrase. I mean, violence usually implies, physical harm, a punch, a crash. So calling an alarm clock violent feels a little exagere. Is the author being a bit dramatic here? Or is there a real argument for actual harm?
It sounds like hyperbole at first, doesn't it? But Hoerricks is very specific about why that word is chosen. And to understand the violence, we first have to understand what it's acting on. The title mentions executive functioning,
Which is a term we hear a lot, but maybe we should define it before we go any further. What exactly is the timer attacking?
Think of it as the CEO of your brain. It's the management system that handles planning, focusing, regulating emotions, and this is the crucial part, initiation.
The ability to say, okay, I'm ready to start this now.
Exactly. And the violence the author describes happens when that internal CEO is basically taken over by an external force. The subtitle is When Systems Choose the Bell Over the Body.
The bell over the body.
Okay.
That frames it perfectly. So this is a fight between the schedule and our own internal needs.
Right. And Hoerricks frames this whole thing through two ancient Greek concepts of time. This is really the core conflict of the piece. Chronos versus kairos.
Chronos. I know Chronos. That's chronological, right? Like clock time.
Yep. Chronos is the clock. It's quantitative. The seconds ticking by. The Google Calendar grid, the bus schedule. Hoerricks says it arrives dressed as efficiency, fairness, and common sense.
Which makes it really hard to argue with. I mean, we need the trains to run on time. If I just show up whenever I feel like it, I'd get fired. Chronos is the structure of society.
It is structure. But the argument is that for a lot of us, the structure feels less like a helpful framework and more like weather without shelter.
Weather without shelter. Wow. That implies you're just exposed.
Vulnerable, yeah. If you're living by Chronos alone, you're exposed to the clock without any protection for your internal state. And that brings us to its opposite, kairos.
So if Chronos is the clock on the wall, what's kairos?
Kairos is human time, the inner calendar. It's doing something when the time is ripe. It's your body saying, I'm hungry now, not it's 12 o'clock.
Okay, or your brain saying, I'm creative now, or I need to sleep now.
Exactly. It's qualitative. It's about readiness. And Hoerricks argues that when we act out of kairos, when we write because we're inspired, we're actually more effective. The problem is that our institutions, our jobs, our schools, they are built almost 100% on Chronos.
So the system is built for the clock, not the person.
Precisely. And when you force a kairos organism, a human being, into a rigid Chronos box, it causes damage. The author calls it Chronos-only care and says it leaves small bruises.
Okay, let's dig into that, bruises. Because again, we're back to this language of injury. What does a time bruise actually look like?
The article gives this devastatingly relatable example from therapy. Imagine you're in a session. You're working through something really, really difficult.
Right.
Maybe you're recounting a trauma. You're on the verge of a breakthrough. You're crying. You're vulnerable. You're mid-breath.
I know exactly where this is going.
And then the clock hits 50 minutes, and the therapist has to say, we have to stop there.
Oof. Yeah, that's jarring.
Because the hour has another meeting. Because the billing code is for a 50-minute block.
It's like being woken up by that alarm clock, but emotionally.
That is the violence. The system prioritized the container, the time slot, over the human healing inside it. It signals that your needs matter less than the schedule.
You're prioritizing the logistics over the life. And I guess we accept this because, time is money. But the argument here is that we're paying a physiological price for it.
A huge price. And speaking of which, the article shifts from therapy to what might be the biggest battlefield for Chronos versus kairos, the school system.
Specifically teenagers. I found this part fascinating because I think every parent or former teenager, which is all of us, has felt this. Hoerricks paints this picture of teens sitting in calculus at 8 a.m.
Or history, or physics, these really high-level tasks.
Right. And at 8 in the morning, Hoerricks uses this incredible metaphor for their brains. They are still assembling like late-arriving orchestras.
It's such a powerful image, isn't it?
It is, but let's really unpack that. Late-arriving orchestras. It's not just that they're tired, it's that the players aren't even in their seats.
Right. Think about an orchestra. You need the strings, the brass, the percussion, all tuned up and ready. And executive functioning is the conductor.
Yeah.
But at 8 a.m. for a teenager, the woodwinds are still in the parking lot. The percussion is getting coffee.
And the conductor, the teacher, is tapping the baton, but the chairs are empty. And they're screaming, "Play Beethoven's Ninth!"
And when the music doesn't happen, or it sounds awful, how does the system interpret that?
Laziness.
Laziness, defiance, misbehavior.
That's the kicker. The text says this mismatch is dressed up as misbehavior.
When the science is clear, developmental science tells us that most young people don't truly wake up in that full executive functioning sense until after 10 a.m. Biologically, they are on a different time zone.
But the system keeps its appointment with the bell, not the body.
So we have this biological reality, kairos, saying not yet, and this systemic reality, chronos, saying right now. And when the kid can't bridge that gap, we blame the kid.
We pathologize the timing. Hoerricks writes that kairos clocks are asked to apologize for being human.
That line really landed for me, apologizing for being human.
It makes you realize how much shame is wrapped up in this. We feel ashamed for being late, ashamed for being unfocused at 9 a.m., ashamed when we need a break, but the schedule says power through.
And that shame is part of the violence. It's a psychological injury, and it stems from the very shape of our institutions. The author uses this very specific phrase that we bill care in rectangles.
Rectangles, I stopped on that too. It sounds so abstract until you look at your phone.
Exactly. Just pull up your Google Calendar. What do you see?
It's a grid, a series of colored blocks, rectangles.
A rectangle of math, a rectangle of therapy, a rectangle of lunch.
A rectangle of deep work that gets interrupted by a rectangle of a status update.
Precisely. But humans aren't rectangular. We're organic. We're fluid. We function in waves and cycles, not neat little blocks.
It's an assembly line approach to the human brain.
It is. And in schools, this creates another problem. The system is paced to an imaginary median child.
The statistical average.
The ghost child who doesn't exist. If you process faster, you're bored. If you process slower, you're left behind. Everyone is forced to match this pace that was set by an algorithm.
It sounds suffocating. That weather without shelter idea really starts to make sense.
Unless you can leave. And this is where the article talks about brave arrangements like unschooling or homeschooling.
Right, and the description is beautiful. A place where learning is allowed to nap after lunch and wake when the soil is ready.
Wake when the soil is ready. That's pure kairos. It's agricultural time. You harvest the crop because it's ripe, not because it's Tuesday.
And this is a really crucial point. The author isn't saying this is the solution for everyone.
No, not at all. My immediate reaction was, that sounds amazing, but who can afford that? I have a job. My partner has a job. We can't just wait for the soil to get ready.
And Hoerricks explicitly acknowledges that. The text expresses enormous tenderness for that possibility, but equal tenderness for the truth that it's a privilege. Most of us have to work Chronos jobs.
So most of us are stuck in the rectangles. We have to survive inside the institution.
We do. And because we're stuck and our bodies don't always cooperate, what do? We look for tools to force a fit.
And that brings us to the section on medication.
Yes. Now, this is a delicate topic, and the author handles it really carefully. Medication for attention and executive function is described as a clock amplifier.
A clock amplifier. That's a fascinating way to frame it. Not medicine for a disease, but a tool for time.
The promise of it, according to the text, is to make the inner weather match the timetable.
It's trying to wake the orchestra up at 8 a.m. because the concert is scheduled.
Right. It forces the internal CEO to take charge, even if the body says it needs rest. And Hoerricks admits, sometimes this helps. This is not an anti-medication piece.
No. Sometimes you need the orchestra to play to keep your job or pass the class.
But there's a cost.
There is a cost. The text warns that it can teach the body to ignore its own warnings.
That's the scary part for me. If your body is screaming, "I'm overwhelmed," or "this is toxic," and you take something that quiets that voice so you can keep going, you aren't fixing the problem.
You're just overriding the fire alarm. You're suppressing kairos to satisfy Chronos.
You're engaging in that violence against yourself. And if you do that for long enough, if you constantly override your body's signals to meet the bell's demands,
You burn out.
you burn out. But Hoerricks offers a reframe of burnout that I think is the most important takeaway from this whole deep dive.
It's a huge one. This part made me stop and just stare at the wall for a minute.
Right, because usually we talk about burnout as a lack of resilience. We think, I burned out because I wasn't tough enough.
We treat it as a personal failure. But Hoerricks says, no. Burnout is not weakness. Burnout is a time injury.
A time injury, like a sports injury.
Exactly like a sports injury. Think about a repetitive strain injury. If you perform a motion that's slightly unnatural over and over thousands of times, eventually the tendon snaps. It's not because the tendon was weak, it's because the load was unsustainable.
So burnout is, what was the phrase? The tendons of attention.
The tendons of attention strained by lifting.
Tendons of attention.
We are lifting the weight of the clock. We are straining to force our organic, kairos-based minds into those sharp-edged Chronos rectangles, day after day, meeting after meeting, and eventually the tendon snaps.
That is profoundly validating.
It is, isn't it? It shifts the blame. It's not that there's something wrong with you. It's that you've been sustaining an impact injury from a system that wasn't built for your biology.
Right. If a factory worker injured their back because the assembly line moved too fast, we'd call that a workplace safety violation.
But because the injury is to our executive function, because it's inside our heads, we just call it life.
Or adulthood. Or school. So if we accept this, that the timer is violent, that burnout is an injury, what do we actually do? We can't all just escape the rectangles.
No. And honestly, I'm glad the author didn't offer a quick fix, because there isn't one. But just having the language for this changes how we navigate it.
It changes the lens.
It creates empathy.
Yeah.
When you look at your teenager groggy at breakfast, instead of seeing a lazy kid, you see a late-arriving orchestra. You see the mismatch.
And maybe you don't add to the shame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for ourselves, in our jobs. When you feel that friction, that inability to focus.
Instead of beating myself up saying, why can't I do this? I can recognize it as kairos trying to talk to me.
You can recognize that your tendons of attention are inflamed, and maybe you can find small pockets of shelter. You can't escape the rectangles, but you can stop apologizing for not being rectangular.
Stop apologizing for being human.
That's the mission.
I have to say, looking at my calendar for tomorrow, it looks a lot more hostile than it did yesterday. But at least now I know what I'm looking at.
And awareness is the first step.
So we've gone from the Greek concepts of time to the modern classroom, from the violence of the timer to the tenderness of the soil.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But if there's one thing to take away, it's that your internal clock isn't broken just because it doesn't match the one on the wall.
Exactly. So here is the question we want to leave you with. We talked about burnout as a time injury, a straining of the tendons of attention. I want you to look at your week. Look at those rectangles on your calendar. Where in your life are you straining your tendons of attention just to satisfy a clock that doesn't care about you?
And is there any way, even a small one, to let your inner orchestra tune up before you force it to play?
Something to think about. Thanks for diving in with us.
We'll see you next time.